Last week, I flew to Berlin for Nextcloud 25 Hub, which has convinced me that there's no better time to actually own your data. Plus, I got to hang out with the Linux gamer, Gardner Bryant, also some incredible German food and more, but first let's talk about what's new in Nextcloud. The word of the year is digital sovereignty. Because of global politics all around the world, people are finding that their data is just straight up getting yeeted because of political leanings. So this idea of actually being sovereign and owning your own data has kind of been important this year. And Nextcloud has very much been leaning into this. That's why they invited me to Munich, where they spoke to many leaders around the world about this topic. Digital sovereignty means that you or your organization or your enterprise can host data on your own terms. It also means you can run it however you want, be it air-gapped, so it's not even internet connected, or you can run it across tons of different people. There's really no limit to this. Finally, especially in Nextcloud's case, it's open source, so there's no vendor lock-in. You can easily, go from a self-hosted instance to something that's hosted by someone else and vice versa. So Nextcloud 25 brings a lot of things. First, starting with the name, they're doing what every other company seems to be doing, which I think actually makes a lot of sense and is very Linux inspired, which is to just go off the year. It is funny though, because it's iOS 26, but Nextcloud Hub 25. So do you want to do it the way cars do it, where you get a year ahead, or do you do it accurately? Which honestly, I think Apple should have done iOS 25. Anyway, it comes with a cleaner interface, which I always welcome. We need to keep these things as usable as possible for newbies. But even for non-newbies, these are welcome changes with more intuitive tabs, simplified navigation, better color schemes across the app, and it does look pretty fresh. Beyond just cosmetics, Nextcloud 25 has a lot of big performance boosts. So just across the board, it should feel snappier and actually be faster and snappier as well, especially when it comes to what I thought was awesome, their new syncing for the desktop clients supposedly now implements some really nice on-demand style syncing that you find in other things like Google Drive, which is very much appreciated, so thank you. They released end-to-end encryption not too long ago, and now you can actually preview end-to-end encrypted markdown files in the web, which is pretty cool. There's calendar date polls, talk threads, intuitive file search, Teams 2.0, and guest accounts. And there's like a buttload of changes, and this is not like a 30-minute video diving into everything. That would just be their keynote. So you can check out the full list of changes on their channel, which I'll leave linked below, and maybe a card or something there. But here's what got me really excited. It's actually the AI stuff. Now, hear me out, even if you hate AI, there are some really cool, compelling things about this that got me on the edge of my seat when I heard it. They shed some light on this, but what really resonated with me in this whole talk, and it actually extends beyond it, is the way that these companies nowadays are utilizing AI. Because AI is very powerful when it has a lot of context and data to work off of. And so this is why people like Google have a really big advantage when it comes to AI, because they already have potentially all pieces of data about your life. And then it's really easy to roll out some AI tool that takes all that data and then can actually do a lot with it. It's really, really hard to replicate this and actually give any AI model all the context about your life in a privacy respecting way. So right now we have some really cool tools, like Proton has Lumo, Duck AI allows you to proxy to things like ChatGPT, and then I also like using local programs like Jan AI or Misty. And these work with local models or even some paid models if you want to process some things in an unprivate way. But really, these are very limited because it's only limited to the context you give it within that chat. And this is where Nextcloud is actually kicking ass.
So we can actually access all your data with the Nextcloud Assistant, even if it's like local to you. And this is something that's a great combination, I think. And we're probably the only ones who can do that, combining powerful AI features with everything local.
So what this means practically is that if you're using Nextcloud and you live your whole life in the Nextcloud Hub, you can do crazy things, like just ask, what meetings are happening tomorrow to your AI agent, and it'll give you a list, and you can say send an email to all those people. I assume this would work. I haven't tested it myself, but based on their demos and everything, you can do some really insane stuff like this, which actually brings all your life into an AI model. But it's your own cloud, that is your own data via your own way of controlling that data. You can actually run this all locally, and you can even turn off all the AI junk if you don't like AI. But this for me is actually very, very appealing. And frankly, I think that this is the future of private AI. Doing AI with end-to-end encryption is extremely hard to do. Proton did have some cool tech in their Lumo AI cat, but again, it's limited to just an AI chat. It's not very easy to have an AI model that's going to take all of your data from your end-to-end encrypted suite in Proton. So while I think it would be awesome to see that on the Proton side of things, Nextcloud has a major advantage because they run on a system where theoretically you can be trusted with your own data, so there's no encryption that's stopping you from accessing data from within its own ecosystem. Now, I don't want to be Apple from last year and just talk about AI, so I do want to talk about the community because it's always really wonderful to be around people in the Nextcloud community. The open source ideals are super strong. They had some super cool people, like the person who literally invented some of the database software that is used in pretty much everything that you guys probably touch out there. And besides just being around people and having interesting conversations, my favorite one was Tobias, who talked about Nextcloud Atomic, so I am gonna shout him out. Pretty much the concept here is that it takes everything good about Nextcloud Pi, which is supposed to make running Nextcloud super easy via some scripts, and it makes Nextcloud an immutable Linux distro. So it's like the Nextcloud all-in-one, but as a Linux distro, which gives it some insane capabilities so that you can literally just boot up a distro and just have Nextcloud running. And yes, this is the same developer that was working on Nextcloud Pi. I actually interviewed James, who is involved with the Nextcloud Pi project on Techlore Talks already, if you want to check that out. But this should make self-hosting Nextcloud more secure and also a lot more accessible to people. And Tobias was just an awesome person, and I was really happy to get dinner with him later that evening. I got to hang out with Gardner, who made his own coverage of the conference as well, and we bonded over our love for content creation, open source, and our love-hate relationship with PeerTube. And chatting with Frank and his story is always a pleasure as well. And yeah, there was hundreds of people there, so if you said hi, which many of you did, it was really great to meet you all in person, and it's always really meaningful to meet you guys face to face, just more intimate than, you know, when you guys leave nice comments on YouTube. That's awesome, and please keep doing that, but actually meeting you guys face to face, like really is the reason why I do this stuff. So thank you all for that wonderful experience. One of the things that open source needs to be better about is reassuring people that their projects will exist for a long time and that they have necessary support. And I think Nextcloud is doing those things really well, and they are leading the path in a lot of ways. They don't need to run this community conference, but they still do it. And I think it's because they see the value in building out a large community around Nextcloud that makes not just Nextcloud better, but also more accessible to regular people. And I've already talked a lot about Synology on this channel, and you can set up something like Nextcloud on your NAS, which is something I've been playing around with, and it's been working really well. And if you want to check out Nextcloud, it's a cool place to start migrating some of the things in your life if you're looking for some kind of self-hosted hub. It's all open source, of course, and you can use their all-in-one if you want to try to host this yourself. Otherwise, they have some data providers that you can go with on their website, and nowadays you can use some end-to-end encryption pretty easily with a lot of these providers. You can also wait for us to finish/start our Nextcloud series that walks you through how to host it, but you can also just use the all-in-one or use a hosted provider if you want to get started before, you know. So yeah, your data, your hardware, your rules, your AI is kind of the summary of the conference, and I think they're doing everything they can to give a very compelling alternative to big tech, not just for individuals, but also for businesses and organizations. And if more business and organizations are migrating to open source from big tech companies, that cuts serious market share from these big tech companies and brings it to open source communities, which also funds them better and makes the tools better for you. It's this incredible cycle that I think is actually a very underrated way to get open source software a bit better supported, especially financially. Check out Nextcloud down below. I want to thank Nextcloud for helping fly me out to both of these conferences. You guys are awesome, and I love the team there, and I love your community. It's always a pleasure to be there. And I want to thank you all for watching. And if you want to check out more ways to support Techlore, you can check those out down in the description. I'll see you guys next time, and thank you for watching.